Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session. And in the previous session, we looked into what is the MapReduce model. We used a very simple command line and the shell script implementation of the MapReduce model, where we will have a mapper process, and a mapper process will do a sort of a filtering, or you can say sorting of the input data, large data, and the output would be in the key value pair, and that key value pair output will be given to the reducer program. One second. The key value pair, that is the output that is generated by the mapper, is given to the reducer program, and reducer program further finds the sum of all the keys, and it will display. We saw the example of a word count to find a count of a particular word in a given document. We implemented that using the command line, using a grep and the word count, where grep will act like a mapper program, and word count space minus l, that particular command will work as a reducer. And similar thing we created using the shell script, mapper script, and the reducer script. Now that is a simple demo. The same thing, if we run it in a parallel, in parallel file system, for example HDFS, there can be multiple mapper functions, there can be multiple reducer programs. They will be working on a large data to make the processing very faster. So MapReduce parallel data flow. From programmer's perspective, the MapReduce algorithm is fairly simple. So from we have already understood, MapReduce algorithm is map will do the kind of a filtering or a sorting kind of a processing on the data, and it will generate the key value pairs, and reducer program will work on the output of that mapper, and it will consolidate. So reducer will be kind of a consolidating functionality. The programmers must provide a mapping function and a reducing function. We saw that we are going to provide the mapping function, and the this is the mapping. What mapping has to be done is decided by the programmer according to the application requirement, and what the reducing function has to be done. In the case of the word count, what the mapping function was doing, mapping function was looking for a particular word. If it is present, it will put that particular lines, and reducing function, it was looking if whatever the number of lines, it will just count how many lines are there. That is the output of the reducer function. Operationally, however, Apache Hadoop parallel MapReduce data flow can be quite complex. Okay, so the structure of that, the Hadoop parallel MapReduce is complex in case of a Apache, in perspective, from the perspective of operationally working on those huge MapReduce programs. Parallel execution of MapReduce requires other steps in addition to the mapper and the reducer processor. One thing we understood is, whenever we want to do the MapReduce programming, we have to come up with a what is a mapper function, and what is a mapper function or a mapper process, and what is the reducer process. Apart from these two, in case of a parallel execution, there are other things that are required. So basic steps that are followed here are like this. First is input splits. Whatever the input data that is given, that should be splitted. As mentioned, HDFS distributes and replicates the data over multiple servers. We have already understood how the HDFS works. Suppose if you want to store a file in a HDFS file system, it will be broken into the different blocks, and the blocks are stored on different nodes, and also there will be a duplicate copy of those particular blocks. And we saw the by default it's a the number of copies would be 3. That is how the HDFS works. And that default block size is 64 MB. And if you want to store a file which is 500 MB, roughly you will have 8 blocks, right? Each having a 64 MB. So 8 blocks will be different. It will be written on different data nodes or the different machines in the cluster, and there would be replicas of these 8 blocks. That's it, 8 into for example, by default it is 3. 8 into 3, that is 24 blocks. 24 blocks will be stored in different servers or the data nodes on the cluster. The data also replicated on multiple machines, typically 3 machines. These data slices are physical boundaries determined by the HDFS and have nothing to do with the data in the file. Okay, so whatever the slices that are done, this is the default nature of the HDFS. That is how the HDFS, it will break, and it has nothing to do with the data files itself. This is how the files are stored in the HDFS. Also, while not considered as a part of MapReduce process, the time required to load and distribute data throughout HDFS servers can be considered as a part of the total processing time. So whatever the HDFS nature of working, how it is the file is stored, the minute it gets the file, it breaks that into blocks according to the block size, and it keeps in different data nodes, and there will be replicas of those data nodes. All these are not part of the MapReduce. Okay, even though this will contribute to the total processing time of the MapReduce programming. Whenever MapReduce programming is accessing the data underneath the HDFS, all these things will happen. Those that is counted as a part of the processing time, but this is not as a part of the MapReduce processing. The input splits used by MapReduce are logical boundaries based on the input data. So whatever the input data that is given to the MapReduce program is based on the logical boundaries, okay, of the input data. For example, split can be based on the number of records in a file. So, for a very simple way to understand this is the size. Okay, the split size. Let us say we in a word count we have a text file. Each line can be considered as a one split. Okay, so that is a one logical split. So each line in the document is a input split, split, or it can be in terms of the byte, number of byte. Splits are almost always smaller than the HDFS block size. So we know that whenever we are doing the splits, it is always lesser than the HDFS block size. By default it is 64 MB. And also number of splits corresponds to the number of mapping processes used in the map stage. So how many splits it will be having, the splits will be corresponding to the number of mapping processes, because those of split will be feeding to the mapping processes or the mappers. Next one is map step. Once we have the input split data, then we have the mapping processes. Mapping processes where the parallel nature of the Hadoop comes into play. For large amounts of data, many mappers can be operating at the same time. I told you the number of mappers can be depending upon the amount of data that is processing, we can scale up or scale down the number of mappers. The users provides the specific mapping process. MapReduce will try to execute the mapper on the machines where the block resides. So mapping function is given by the user, means the programmer, and these the mappers, they will get executed on the machines or the servers where the actual block resides, because we are going to take the processing to the where the data is available. Because the file is replicated in HDFS, the least busy node with the data will be chosen. If all nodes holding to the data are too busy, MapReduce will try to pick the node that is closest to the node that hosts a data block. The last choice is any node in the cluster that has access to HDFS. So this is the sequence in which it will choose. First thing, it will try to execute that particular mapping computation or the mapping process on the machine where the actual block resides. And if for particular reason, if it is busy, then it will try to locate a node which is very close to that particular node. In the worst case, it will try to execute the machine on the cluster which is least busy, which has access to that particular HDFS. Then after the map step, we have the combiner step. In combiner step, it is possible to provide an optimization or pre-reduction as part of the map stage where key value pairs are combined prior to the next stage. The combiner stage is optional. In case of a combiner stage, let us say before you give it to the map stage or the map step, you want to do some kind of a combining of the data based on some logical conclusions. Then you can have a combiner step that will combine certain things at a higher level compared to the map step output. So in those cases where it is suitable to have combiner, we can have. Otherwise, we need not have the combiner step. Then comes the combiner is given to the shuffle. Before the parallel reduction stage can complete, all similar keys must be combined and counted by the same reducer process. So before we do the actual reduction, all the similar keys will be combined together at the shuffle, and maybe it is put it in a certain order in the shuffle stage. Therefore, results of the map stage must be collected by key value pairs and shuffled to the same reducer process. If only a single reducer process is used, shuffle stage is not needed. So if we have only one single reducer, then we don't need the shuffle. Otherwise, we would need the shuffle stage. Then comes the final step of reduce step. The final step is the actual reduction. In the stage, the data reduction is performed as per the programmer's design. So whatever the programmer's design is there, according to the reduce will happen. The reduce step is also optional. The results are returned to HDFS. Each reducer will create an output file. So if you have a number of reducer programs as 4, it will create the 4 output files. For example, we can see here 4 reducers create a files called part hyphen 000 2 and 3, so on. These are the output that will be written on the HDFS by the reducer. Here is the one example we have. This is the input file. In this particular diagram, for understanding purpose, they have taken a very small file. This is the input file where there are 4 lines with some words. You can see SQL, DW, SQL. On the second line, we have SQL, SSIS, SSRS, so on. Now, the next step is in case of a parallel data flow, it is split. This particular input data is split. So we use very different logical ways to split the input data. Here it is a simple way of splitting based on their lines. So all the lines are separated. You can see this input file is split into 4 data sets, each having a one line. Now next step is the map. This input will go to a mapper. So you can see how many splits we have: 1, 2, 3, 4. And accordingly, as there are number of splits, we will have the number of mappers. So how many mappers we have? 1, 2, 3, 4 mappers we have. And each mapper will convert this input into a key value pair. So what is the output of this mapper? Mapper will read this, then it will convert this into a list of key value pairs. For example, you can see SQL comma 1, DW comma 1, SQL comma 1. Similarly, this one SQL comma 1, SSIS comma 1, SSRS comma 1. So here if we choose to have a combined, so you can see this is optional. It is in the square bracket. It is optional. You need not have a combined. Directly we can have the a shuffle stage. In combine stage, what we are doing, just we are doing the combining the keys in from the map stage. Here example, in the map stage we have two key value pairs, SQL comma 1, SQL comma 1. So you can combine it as, make it as SQL comma 2 and DW comma 1, because there is DW only 1. Similarly, you can see this combining action. Combining action. Then, and in the shuffle and sort, you are going to sort all this. Okay. In the sort, you can see we have here BI. Okay. Logically, according to the sorting, it will come here. Then it is sorted into BI comma 1. Then all the DWs are sorted here. Okay. And next SQL, all the SQL key value pairs will be shuffled into another group. All SSAS keys are shuffled into one. Then this is SSRS. Then this is SSES. Okay, and this is SSRS. These are the different key. So all these keys are distinct. Okay, you can see all the keys are first it is sorted, and they are shuffled according to their key values. Now, how many reducers will have? It depends on how many shufflings we get here. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we will have 6 reducer programs, and you can see this is reducing this bi comma 1, it is reduced to bi comma 1. Here this dw comma 1, this will be reduced to dw comma 2. Okay, count is 2. SQL 5, 2 plus 3, 5. SQL 5. Similarly, SSAS 1, ES1, and SSRS 2. This is the output that we will get. So this is the simple mechanism of the map reduce parallel data flow. There is a different example that is given in the book that is also on a similar line, where they don't have the combined stage. So MapReduce parallel data flow. The first thing MapReduce will do is the create data splits. As we see here, the data split is created. This is the data splits. For simplicity, each line will be one split. As I told you, each line is one split. Since each split will require a map task, there are 4 mapper process that count the number of words in the split. And on the cluster, the results of each map task are taken to the local disk and not HDFS. So one thing you have to notice, the results of the map task, whatever the mapper is doing, it is written on the local disk, not on the HDMS. Next, similar keys are need to be collected and sent to the reducer process. The shuffle step requires data movement and can be expensive in terms of processing time. Depending upon the nature of the application, the amount of data that must be shuffled throughout the cluster can vary from small to large. So shuffling is a very expensive process, and depending upon the data, it can be a time consuming process. Once the data have been collected and sorted by the keys, then the reduction step begins. It is not necessary and normally not recommended to have a reducer for each key value pair. So it depends on your design whether you require. It depends on the performance of the cluster as well. You need not have as many reducers as a key value pairs. Okay, you can have a less number of reducers as well. Sometimes, in some cases, single reducers will provide adequate performance. In other cases, multiple reducers may require speed up the reduce phase. Number of reducers is tunable option for many applications. So, number of reducers, it can be one, it can be a couple of them. It depends on how you want to tune for the performance. The final step is to write the output to the HDFS. So whatever output you get, you will write it into the HDFS. Here is we have a example of having another combiner step. As mentioned, a combiner step enables some pre-reduction of the map output data before giving it to the reducer. If you want to have any kind of a pre-reductions, you can use the combiner step, and which is optional. This is the example. The map reduce produced output like this: run comma 1, spot comma 1. This is a one kind of a output that is given here. Now you can have a combiner. Okay, in case of a this kind of output you get from the mapper, you can have a combiner. What it will do: run comma 2 and spot comma 2, and then that data will be given to the reducer. This optimization can help minimize the amount of data transfer needed for the shuffle phase. So map reduce in this is the example we have, including a combiner before we are giving it to the shuffle stage. So we have here the mapper output: run comma 1, spot comma 1, run comma 1, that is combined into run comma 2, spot comma 2. Similarly, we will have a all the mapper and the combiner, and the combiner output will be given to the shuffle stage. So the amount of data that is given to the shuffle stage will reduce if we have a combiner. The Hadoop Yarn Resource Manager and the MapReduce framework determine the actual placement of mappers and the reducers. So in case of Hadoop Yarn Resource Manager and MapReduce, the framework, it will decide the where the actual placement of the mappers and the reducers will be. Okay, and as mentioned earlier, MapReduce framework will try to place the map task close to the data as possible. So we told, um, depending upon the what is the current status of each of those nodes, the map task will be it will be chosen in such a way that it is very close to the where the data is available. Okay, so that care will be taken care. It will request placement from Yarn scheduler, but may not get the best placement due to the load on the cluster. So it depends on the load. The best placement is what? The placement of the map task in the server where the actual data slice reside. Okay, that is the best case, but it depends on the load. In general, node can run both mapper as well as a reducer. Each of the nodes are capable to run both the mapper as well as the reducers. Indeed, the dynamic nature of ARN enables the work containers used by completed map tasks to be returned to the pool if of available resources. So, whenever the map task is completed, it will be returned back to the pool of available resources so that it can be reused. So we will see the simple three node map reduce process. That is the next. So this is the three node process. Here, once the mapping is complete, the same node begins the reduce process. So every node is capable of running both the mapper task as well as the reducer task. So once the mapping is complete, the same node will begin the reducing process also. This shuffle stage makes sure that necessary data are sent to each mapper. Also note that there is no requirement that all the mappers complete at the same time, or that mapper on a specific node be complete before a reducer is started. So you have to note that there is no requirement that all the mappers should complete or one mapper should complete before the other. There is no such requirement. Just before a reducer starts, that particular mapper which is feeding the reducer must have been completed, and it will provide the data to that particular reducer. Reducer can be set to start shuffling based on the threshold percentage of mappers that have finished. So you can set the threshold. Once that threshold is reached, or that threshold is crossed, then the reducing actions can start. This is the diagram: map reduce data flow. We have three nodes here: node 1, node 2, node 3. So they are preloaded local input data. So these are the input data that is given to the mapping processes. these are the local data is split. This is the split data that will be feeding to the mapping processes which are running in parallel. Then intermediate output that comes from the mapper. Similarly, on node 2, node 3, the mappers are running. Then values exchanged by the shuffle process. So these are the shuffle processes that the values will be shuffled based on the key. Whatever the key they have, the values will be shuffled. Once that shuffling takes place, reducing process generates the output. So based on this shuffled data, which will be worked upon by the reducing processes, and it generates the output on the system. Finally, although the examples are simple in nature, the parallel map reduce algorithm can be scaled up to extremely large data sizes. Okay, so same the concept is exactly the same. The algorithm is exactly the same. It can be scaled up to a very huge amount of data. For example, the Hadoop word count sample application can be run on 3 lines given. So earlier example we saw like very few lines of code was input was given, or we can have a huge file 3 terabytes. The application requires no change to account for the scale of the problem. Feel that is one of the remarkable advantage of map processing. So the scaling will takes place automatically. So based on the input data, automatically the number of mappers and the reducers they can easily scale up and provide the processing capability. That is the advantage of having a MapReduce processing. Next is the fault tolerance. One of the most interesting aspects of parallel MapReduce operation is the strict control of data flow throughout the execution of the program. We already talked about the data flow, how the data flow takes place. It is from the mapper to the reducer. So that direction is one direction. The data will always flow from the map process to the reduce process, and there is also each of these mappers will work independently. One mapper program do not interact with the other mapper program. For example, mapper process do not exchange data with the other mapper process. Data can only go from the mappers to the reducer, not other direction. The confined data flow enables MapReduce to operate in a fault-tolerant fashion. So this is the reason why we can have MapReduce operate in a fault-tolerant fashion. Fault-tolerant in the sense, if some process fails, if some server fails, then easily we can restart the another mapper process. Only thing that will happen is it will add to the processing time, because that map particular process has to be restarted in the beginning, so there will be additional time. Other than that, there is no issue with the processing itself. The design of map reduce make it possible to easily recover from the failure of one or many map processes. For example, should a server fail, the map tasks that were running on that particular machine could be easily restarted on another working server, because there is no dependence on any other map task. So if there is server failure, whatever the map tasks that were running, that can be shared on another server. Okay, because there is no dependency, so that can be done easily. As I said, it will add to the processing time. In functional language terms, the map tasks do not share state with other mappers. Of course, the application will run more slowly because work needs to be redone, but it will complete. In similar fashion, failed reduce can be restarted. Similar to the mappers, reducers can also be restarted. Most of the time, if a reducer, when we have the reducer, it will be having the input data from the mappers. That data will be available. In case that data is not available, then we have to start the mapper process, then run the reducer. However, there may be additional work that has to be done in such case. call that completed reduced task writes results to HDFS. So the reduced task will results into HDFS. If a node fails after this point, the data should still be available due to redundancy in HDFS, right? If there is any failure, still data will be available because of a redundancies. There will be multiple copies. If reduce task remain to be completed on a down node, the MapReduce application master will need to restart the reducer task. If the mapper output is not available for newly restarted reducer, then the mass task will need to be map task will be required to be restarted. If for some reason the reducer doesn't have the data from the map, then the map task has to be restarted as well. This process is totally transparent to the user and provides fault tolerant system to run the application. So this is how the MapReduce programming is fault tolerant. Even if there is a fault on the map task or a reduce task, it can be easily recovered. Speculative execution. So speculative execution, one of the challenges with many large cluster is the inability to predict or manage unexpected system bottlenecks or failures. So here, even though we have all the system running smoothly, it is very difficult to predict what kind of unexpected things we can have, what kind of a failures we can have, what kind of a bottlenecks we will run into. It's very difficult to predict. In theory, it is possible to control and monitor resources so that network traffic and processor load can be evenly balanced. In practice, however, this problem represents a difficult challenge for a large system. So, in theoretical sense, we can look into the network traffic, how much each of the processor is loaded, whether it is loaded evenly or not. uh, uh, that care can be taken, but however in case of a large systems this becomes a bit of a challenge. Thus it is possible that congested network, slow disk controller, failing disk, high processor load, or some other similar problem might lead to slow performance without anyone noticing. So uh, any of these things, okay, congested network or a slow disk controller, failing disk, high processor load, okay, any kind of this problem can slow down without getting noticed. That's a big problem. When one part of the MapReduce process runs slowly, it ultimately slows down everything else because the application cannot complete until the processes are finished. Suppose, let us say, some process in the MapReduce programming is running very slowly, and with the MapReduce programming, it is the combination of outputs from all the processes. If one process is not running with the expected speed, or there is certain slowness, it will slow down the complete MapReduce programming, because we cannot finish without processing all the processes. The nature of the parallel MapReduce model provides an interesting solution to this problem. So there is a one interesting solution that we can have. We know that the input data are immutable, means we are not changing the input data for the MapReduce processes. So it is possible to start a copy of running a map process without disturbing any other running mapper process. So the solution that is used here is, if we find certain processes running slow, we can always start another redundant process which will be running, which is exactly similar as the process which is slower. So we can start that process. Suppose that as most of the map tasks are coming to a close, the application master notices some are still running and schedules redundant copies of the remaining jobs on a less busy or free servers. So if it application master notices that certain jobs are running slow, others are completing, certain are running slow, it will make a redundant copies of same jobs. Okay, it will run on some other nodes which are relatively free. Then what happens if should the secondary process finish first, means whatever the processes that are started as a duplicate process, if they finish first, then the output will be taken. The ones which are running slow, they can be terminated. Okay, so should the secondary process finish first, the other first processes are then terminated, or vice versa. If the original ones they complete, then the later ones which are started as a duplicate process, they will be terminated. So whichever finishes first, the output will be taken, others will be stopped. This process is called as a speculative execution. So speculative execution is what, in just simple terms, the application master feels that certain processes are running slow. So what it will do is it will create a duplicate process of this process. Means this process will also, it could be a mapper, it could be a reducer, it could be any other process. So this process will also do the exactly same as which the application master thinks as running slow. Then whichever gives the result first, that result will be taken, the other one will be terminated. That is how it will do the speculative execution. Let us say in certain scenario there is some disk problem with that particular server, and this process is running slow. It creates another duplicate process on some other server, and it completes very fast. Then it will kill this particular process. So that is how this is called as a speculative execution. The same approach can be applied to reducer processes that seem to be taking long time. So if whatever we are doing this for a speculative execution, that can be applied to the reducer tasks as well. Speculative execution can reduce cluster efficiency because of redundant resources are assigned to application that seem to have a slow spot. So one thing disadvantage is we will see cluster efficiency will come down because there are redundant processes accessing the similar resources. It can be turned off or on in the mapred-site.xml configuration file. So this is a speculative execution is a configurable thing. If you want to turn it off, you don't want speculative execution, you can turn it off or you can turn it on. How to do that? You can access the mapred-site.xml configuration file and you can set the appropriate parameters. Hadoop MapReduce hardware. The capability of Hadoop MapReduce and HDFS to tolerate server or even whole rack failures can influence the hardware design. So hardware designs depends on the how the tolerance should be, whether tolerance should be the server failure or the whole rack failure. Okay, if you are not considering the complete rack failure, the design would be different. If you are just seeing the to be tolerant to the failure of the just the data nodes, then the design would be different. The use of commodity servers for Hadoop clusters has made low cost, high availability implementation of Hadoop possible for many data centers. So one of the advantage of Hadoop cluster is that it can use the commodity servers. We don't need a very high end servers. Commodity servers will work fine. So that is how the Hadoop system, Hadoop cluster will become very low cost. At the same time, it is a high availability implementation we can have. Indeed, Apache Hadoop philosophy seems to assume servers will always fail and take steps to keep failures from stopping application progress on cluster. The whole Hadoop philosophy is that servers will fail and there should be steps taken to take care of that failure, and that failure should should not have any kind of a implication on the application progress. That is the whole philosophy of the Hadoop system. The use of server nodes for both storage, that is HDFS, and processing, mappers and reducer, is somewhat different from the traditional separation of these two tasks in the data center. So here the server nodes both for the storage. So we want to store the data as a part of HDFS system, and also we want to do the processing on those servers, that is mapper programs, reducer programs. So this is totally different from the traditional systems. It is possible to build Hadoop system and separate the roles. So if you want to have this roles separate, we can have that. We can have a discrete storage and the processing nodes. We can have a nodes which will used for the storage, and we can have a nodes which are used for the processing. However, majority of Hadoop systems use the general approach where servers enact both roles. So, but in case of a Hadoop system, we will use the system which will take care of both the roles. It can be used for the storage, and it can be used for the processing purpose also. Another interesting feature of dynamic MapReduce execution is the capacity to tolerate dissimilar servers. So even in the Hadoop cluster, we can have different kinds of servers. So means dissimilar servers. We need not have all the servers in the cluster exactly the same. So it has that capability to tolerate those dissimilarities. That is, old and new hardware can be used together. Of course, large disparities in performance will limit the faster system, but the dynamic nature of the MapReduce execution will still work effectively on such systems. So we can use the older and the newer system. Of course, there will be some difference in the performance, but that can be used effectively in the MapReduce executions. Next is the MapReduce programming. In this MapReduce programming, we are going to look into the compiling and running the Hadoop word count example. We will see the word count example using the Java programming. So we have the classic Java word count program for Hadoop. How it is written, we will go through the source code, then compilation step, and how to run that particular example. And also in MapReduce programming, and this is also very important question that has been asked. The implementation using different technologies, word count program, and next one is the Python, using Python word count application using Hadoop streaming interface. So in case of a Python, we use the streaming interface, and also we have Hadoop pipes interface used to run C++ version of a word count. The same word count implementations are different. An example of MapReduce chaining is presented using a Hadoop grep example. So we will see that particular example, and also we'll see what are the strategies that are used for debugging MapReduce kind of programs that we will see in the next session.